Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. All right, gang, welcome back to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast in 2025. I've got an especially deep voice this week because I've just got over a horrible bout of flu which left me in bed for about 10 days. So that's a shit start to the new year, and I missed New Year's Eve too. But what I didn't miss was the amazing Brake Magazine TAMP podcast Dakar preview evening at the Bike Shed on the 28th of December 2024. I hope everybody enjoyed it. It felt pretty special to me, the bits that I got to watch and enjoy, and hopefully our bit at the end went down well as well. So this is part one, where we talk to the absolute legend that is Patsy Quick, more latterly of Desert Rose. Patsy's an absolute hero of mine. As I say in the interview, I got back into motorbikes in the early 2000s, and hearing about her exploits and watching her and Charlie in Race to Dakar was a really special experience for me, and something that left a fairly big marker on me for the rest of my motorcycling life over the last 20 years or so. So it was amazing to get to interview these two. So yeah, this is part one. This is Patsy live from the Bike Shed with Noel Tom, my old mate, and my new mate, Llel Pavey. Let's get on with it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, well, I think this is the most exciting part of the evening. Tonight, we're going to have a live show brought to you by Clive and Noel from the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. We've got some wonderful guests for you tonight. So, if you two can take your seat, over to you, Clive and Noel.
I got back into biking in 2005. Race to Dakar it kind of welcomed me into biking. So being able to talk to these absolute legends of Dakar is a real honour tonight. So we're going to start off introducing the first guest, a former British and European enduro champion, the first British woman to enter the Dakar in 2003, and I think the first British woman to finish the Dakar in 2006. Patsy Quick! I think Patsy wanted to say something before we started the interview.
Yeah, I do actually. Back in 99, this spotty, obnoxious child was brought to my garden with his father, who I was obviously in great awe of. And I'd just like to say, actually, on behalf of Desert Rose, that, apart from Race to Dakar, that is the best film I have seen made on Dakar. Well done. I think it'll be 20 years next year from when I first entered it, and there's been a lot of talk about making films, and nothing has ever captured what I feel as a rider Dakar was all about. But that gave me goosebumps. That reminded me of trying to ride with no bloody headlights, going round and round in circles. The first year I did it was on a Honda XR600, and I could not start it unless the side stand was down. It wouldn't start on the left, it would only start on the right. And well done, Llel. You should be very proud, and all the team.
Patsy, what inspired the antiques dealer to want to enter the Dakar Rally in 2003? Tell us a little bit about your riding history and how you actually got to the Dakar.
Well, there was no riding history. And my sister was a dancer and a model. I was just the tomboy that liked the rally grifter.
That's a bicycle. There's a few younger folk here.
I had a friend that had a trials bike, and in fact, I was looking back, I was so rotten. In school, I didn't want to be. She wasn't cool. Out of school, she was really cool because she had a trials bike, and I used to go around there. And then I just got onto that guinea pig wheel, really. My first husband and I got a bank loan. I spent it on a bike. That was supposed to do a property. I spent it while he was away trying to do the property.
Is this the former husband?
Yeah.
I wonder how that happened.
It was actually sitting round the kitchen table when many dreams are hatched, drinking far too much red wine, getting a little magazine called TBM, and I think the first thing I entered, in fact, Liz is down there, who did it with me. It was a rally. I'd never ridden an enduro, never really gone trail riding. I just thought, pissed one night, let's just enter a major rally, and that's what I went off to do. I think it was 99. Was it 99, Liz?
How much riding had you done before the Dakar?
Well, that's when I got into enduros and went on. So I'd done some riding, but I look back, Dakar, I wasn't a racer. I was just a stubborn woman who wanted to go off and achieve that.
The first Dakar in 2003 didn't have a particularly happy ending. Tell us what happened with that.
That was going through Libya, and the dunes out in Libya used to curve. I think they call them jawtooth. They sort of curve back round. And I was on the Honda, couldn't start the damn thing when it wanted to fall over. And so I'd already sliced my knee open, and then I lost my spleen by going cartwheeling over the dune on the Honda, which was very top heavy. I didn't know I'd done that. I just wanted to get up, and I was actually, what you always used to do, if you come off in the dunes, you had to get back to the top of the dunes, put your helmet on, or sit there and wave, so you didn't really get run over by a car. So I sat there, waved a car down, and then passed out, and sort of the rest is history, really. I went out.
You didn't just lose your spleen, though. It wasn't like a carelessness, was it? There was a little bit more to it than that, like helicopters and ambulances and hospitals and surgery. And
it's changed. People always say, is it better or worse? It's just very different now. And back then, there was an amazing French medical team. It used to be like a MASH setup, and they carted me off. The representative of the UK, Chris Evans, came with me. And
not that one.
No, not that one. And he said afterwards, there was like a donkey that was sort of wheeled through the bottom of the hospital while I was laid out on the table. It's all part of life's rich tapestry, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So 2003 didn't have a great ending. You went back in 2004. Again, why? After such a horrendous experience, did that not put you off in any way?
No, it didn't actually. It was stubbornness, really.
Did you want to go back straight away, or did it take some time? Did rose-tinted spectacles kick in quickly?
No, it was the thought of raising all that money again. That was the worst thing. Facebook, social media wasn't around then, so to actually raise the money was really, really difficult. I think that's one of the biggest things, which I'm sure Llel will agree with, is there was no one knew about Dakar. You know, Mark Thatcher went into the desert and got lost, and that was about it. So really it was when Charlie came along, that's it opened it all up. But no, I was just very lucky. I had a supportive husband at the time, and we just raised the money, borrowed it, begged it, and stole it.
But a lot of people, I think, do the Dakar and just think never again, but that never happened to you.
No, that's not my character.
So was it all about getting the finish then?
It was getting the finish. KTM helped at the time. I had a fellow rider that came, some of you know, Clive, Zippy Town. We rode together, and unfortunately that year we ran out of time. A bit like watching that film is, if you can imagine, then if you're in the dunes, you can't see, you don't know your way out. You have to get back to the bivouac by your start time, and the French were absolutely, didn't matter what story you came back with and what difficulties you had to get back, and unfortunately we ran out of time in Mauritania.
That was 2004. Still one more attempt in 2005.
Yes, another one. My engine broke in Mauritania.
Was it a KTM? Yeah.
Neil was saying about the spindle there was actually, I think it was actually down to would you believe it, a bad batch of batteries that were like a few mil bigger, and that cost another, I don't even want to think about it now, a lot of money. A little story I've got, that a local shop in West Sussex, I managed to somehow, I don't think we had a mobile telephone, but we had a phone of some sort, Iridium phone, and I got through to this chap and said, I can't start the bike. We'd already taken the carb off at that point, and he said, we're in a sandstorm in the dunes in Mauritania, and he said, whatever you do, don't get sand in it. And I thought, well, too fucking late now. And actually we got rescued by the Mauritanian army. We got flown in by parachute food for the next day, because unbeknown to us, there'd been huge problems on the race, sandstorms, and there was actually one French guy about 3 dunes over that had actually, we found afterwards, was slightly losing the plot. And we thought we could hear someone, but we thought, no, that's our imaginations. So we got parachuted in food. Then the following night, we'd use the parachutes to keep warm, because like Llel said, it's freezing cold out in the desert, wrapped up. And then the next thing, our feet are being kicked And I came to, and there was this Mauritanian army there with guns. Zippy was next to me, said, we've been kidnapped. I said, no, we didn't know. I just had that gut feeling that they'd come to rescue us, and they took us out, and I think it was another day's drive out of there. They took us back to the local commander. My pillow was a box of bullets or something, like grenades or something like that.
We've had similar days out in the lakes,
the
haven't
old
we?
box of bullets, yeah.
What was different about the successful race in 2006?
I was less ready in some ways. I can remember going there feeling completely knackered because we were just trying to get the money together. So it was all work. And that feeling that I thought, I can't go through with this for another year, so hook or by crook, we had to finish. Smaller bike, possibly, definitely helped. I had actually stopped being that stubborn to ride some large, overweight bike. So that, definitely helped.
What were you riding in 2006?
Good old 525.
Pretty much an enduro bike with rally fairing on, etc.
Yeah, and I can remember skipping across the dunes and I think seeing Charlie and Simon on those BMWs go, bye!
And if you hadn't finished in 2006, had you planned to sort of not have another go, or would you keep going?
It's hard to sort of remember actually almost back, but the emotions do come back still now. But it was different back then, and people would remortgage their houses. They would do ridiculous things to get the money together. There wasn't things like crowdfunding. You just, if you wanted to go, you had to get the money together. So if you weren't lucky enough to get someone to sponsor you, you would literally remortgage your house. And I met many people that did. So the other thing that you don't see now, I was saying to a chap earlier, and I can understand it, but the medical team and the organisers would let you carry on in quite extreme physical conditions because they knew how important it was for you to finish. You know, you would have broken bones. Now, you've only got to get a high temperature, and I think they can't. No, out. But I can understand it. It's because of insurance. It would never be allowed to be started again if not. That will of wanting to finish is, I find, very difficult to describe because it's just in you. People were asking Llel, how do you train? You can't really train for Dakar. You've really got to want it and be able to push yourself financially, physically, mentally.
Do you think it becomes a real obsession for some people?
Yeah, without a doubt. I've seen, and since finishing, met many customers that they get obsessed about it. They have to finish it.
And do you think they're satisfied when they do finish?
I don't think it ever goes away. I think I feel very privileged and very lucky to have done Dakar in Africa. People don't have that choice now, so I do feel extremely lucky. It never goes away. We take people out to Morocco now, and you can see it in their faces. It's still, although Morocco's changed, North Africa's changed, it still conjures up, there's still a mystique about it.
You've mentioned stubbornness. Maybe the people in the audience, people that work for you, might be better to answer this question.
Now.
What is it about you, Pats, that's made you go back 4 years until you finally finished it? There's got to be more than stubbornness. What is that mental attitude of a successful Dakar finisher?
Oh, that's a question. I'm not sure I have the vocabulary to... There's not a word. You have got to really want it. In fact, actually, I use Llel's dad's words over the years a lot. You have got to be prepared to crawl over broken glass to get it. I've been very lucky that I've kind of got old. Whether people like Si, that passion, and I hopefully Llel, when he came to Morocco with us, you've either got the passion or you haven't. If you haven't got it, you're not prepared to push yourself that hard.
We've talked about operations and near-death experiences. What are the real highs of doing the Dakar for you?
Well, after 4 years, and God knows how much money, getting over that finish line probably was... But then you feel very flat. For 4 years, I focused on that. I think the one thing that never sat comfortably with me is how selfish you have to be in order, I think, to carry out any dream that involves a lot of money and a lot of time. And then after that, actually, with the assistance team that we run, just actually seeing that joy in other people, actually. And it doesn't have to be Dakar. Achieving any goal, I think, in your life is He's amazing.
Tell us a little bit more about Desert Rose. We have had Joe on the podcast some time ago, season 3 episode. I'm just making it up. I've no idea when you're on, Joe, but search for it. You'll find it. What services do Desert Rose offer for budding rally raid riders?
So there was no social media back then, Facebook and all the rest of it. We literally compiled sort of portfolios of photos to send out to people. And after the first year, which the daily newspapers got hold of, I put together everything. And it was when Sting from the Police brought out their song, Desert Rose. So after I finished in 2006, we then provided a service to take other riders to do Dakar, which we carried on doing, went to South America. And then I gave up the antique business and it became a full-time business. And then from them, we started the academy in 2009, the Desert Rose workshop. Now we do the electric bikes and we take people to Morocco. So it's a sort of a one-stop shop, really, trying to support people with whatever, whether it's just to go trail riding or whether they want to go and do Dakar. It's all extremes.
Would you ever say no to somebody? Let's say, for example, if an overweight 59-year-old...
No, you're not going. I'm not letting you.
Well, you didn't let me go to Morocco either.
Exactly.
I'm talking to Patsy now. Distinctly average rider approached you with a dream. What would you say to somebody of that level of ability?
How much time and money have you got?
All the money in the world and all the time in the world.
Then you could do it. Unfortunately, now I think that the Dakar organisation have brought in restrictions, and the bikers are almost a pain to the organisers from many different aspects. If you've got the car teams and now with the SSVs, there's a lot more people that come along, so it's a lot more revenue, whereas the motorcyclists are almost like, we're not really earning. So it's harder, and I think now, unless you're part of a satellite team, it's very difficult to get the entry in. We have got a Brit, Robbie Wallace has gone out, so if you're following it on Eurosport, and James Hillier, yeah. So try and follow them, because Robbie came to Desert Rose and has done numerous events with us. So I shall be very proud to see him cross the finish line.
I'll pay for you to do it, don't worry.
I'm all right, thanks. Might give it a miss this year. What would you recommend somebody to do? What's the thing they need to work on most? Is it fitness? Is it bike handling, bike fitness? Where would they go to make sure they're ready and fit to go?
It's a rounded skill set for everything from your physical fitness down to your riding ability. You've got to want to do it. If it's not Dakar, it could be Africa Eco Race, or there's other rallies, but we all think of Dakar. And it still amazes me, we still get phone calls from people, I'd like to come and do Dakar next year. Well, okay, tell me what you do. Well, nothing really, we just fancy to go and do it. And it's their comprehension of what Dakar is all about. It's very different. If you want a challenge, do you want a challenge?
No. What would the challenge be if one were to accept it?
Yeah, well, why don't you pick an event, come to us and say, right, we want to go and do that.
She's kind of talking to you lot, not just me at the moment. It's open to everybody, not just me.
Sounds like you're keen.
Yeah, not really. Too old, too overweight, and too average.
I've got this terrible question you asked me to ask in the car, but there's no way.
liar.
There's no way I'm asking that.
Go on, do it.
We agreed, no way.
I can't remember what it was.
Is Patsy Quick your real name?
Oh, that's... It is something we quite often ask to people that have got,
Olemoto.
Yes, it is. All through school, P quick here at the register? Yes.
We were calling you Patsy quite fast on the way down.
Yeah.
I think you've ruined my last question now, because it was a serious question, yeah. The question I was going to ask you is, what's the difference between finishers of the Dakar, like yourself and Llel, and this guy, Skylar Howes, who we were fortunate enough to interview earlier this week? He comes from a very, very humble background. He started off on a $1,200 bike he bought from out of a barn somewhere and did up himself. Boy, is he rapid, and he's a Honda factory rider now. And maybe, Llel, you can chip in here. What do you think the difference is between people that finish the Dakar and somebody like that has got, I guess it's speed, but...
He's got an amazing amount of skill.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of talent, time on the bike. I mean, you've seen a lot more people than I have go through that process of who makes it, who doesn't, who's really quick, who's not. But I think the more you dig into the backstory, there's a raw talent there, but he's also ridden a motorbike an insane amount. And also when you dig into his story a bit more, I think it sounds like Pats has got this as well. There's a little bit in your brain that processes the world slightly differently. It's like a little bit obsessive, a little bit. I think a lot of people that do hard things like that most people should, like, you can recognize you shouldn't have done Dakar. That's a terrible life choice. If you're looking at surviving life, it's not a good life choice, is it? And when you dig into his story, I think he has that on another level again. Do you know the injuries he goes through and the suffering and just gets up and goes, we're going to do that again. Like it's nothing. You know, in that podcast, he talks about his foot nearly came off last year. Well, it did come off and they just popped it back on and he was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. But I'm paid to race my motorbike, so we're going racing again, and I don't think that's normal. It's not, is it? That's my view on it. Anyway, I don't know if
They're pushing themselves on what is a smaller bike now. It's more like a long extended motocross race.
You can see it in the footage of riding these bikes. We rode pretty slowly and it felt like we were going super fast, but you're not.
You look like you were.
You're doing like 30 miles an hour, and then you watch the footage of the pro riders and their capacity to sit on the limit and their willingness to push that hard all the time, I think is unrivaled in normal humans. There's definitely something different upstairs and they don't know it. But I've ridden enough, and I'm sure you've ridden enough to know that you're not that happy to sit on their limit in the same way. You'll never find the same limit because you can't do that. They're different. I think that's okay as well. I'm glad I'm not him because it sounds really painful.
He tells us some good drug stories as well, and he was on ketamine when he had the accident. Well, that's another story. The other thing, when we spoke to Ross Branch, we spoke to Ross about the training he's been doing. So he told us and it's interesting you say that it's really difficult to train for the Dakar unless you live in an American desert. The deserts in Botswana, which is where Ross is from, and obviously Australia, where people like Toby Price are from. So Ross told us he'd done 13,000 training kilometres this year.
Jesus.
On top of all of the season's racing he's done as well. So that's the level that gives these guys the extra speed and the skill and the navigation. And
training, I think, in two-wheel, certainly off-road, I think, has changed a lot. Certainly the factory team and a lot of riders now, you've even got to look, well, Neil sees it with the British Enduro lads. That would have been lads that just rocked up in their transit van. Now they're doing all the training there, the whole diet, so everything's taken a lot more seriously, but they're pushing themselves as well.
Listen, thank you very much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Patsy Quick.
Thank you.
Patsy Quick, absolute legend. Thank you so much for doing that. And thank you to Llel for putting the event on. Right, next week, we are going to bring you the second part of the recording that we made at the bike shed with Charlie Borman and Patsy Quick, who insisted on staying on the stage so she could take the piss out of Charlie. How mean. The film Patsy is referring to at the start of the recording is a film made by Llel Pavey and Break magazine, which is now available on YouTube for everybody to watch. It's got one of those mad names. I'll read it out to you. 2 XT500s and the Sahara Desert. We recreated the first Dakar Rally / Dakar Rally feature film. Just search on Break magazine and you'll find it in the list of videos. And it is an excellent film. Possibly one of the best that Llel has ever done, if not the best. So make sure you go in and watch that, and I can guarantee you'll enjoy it. Right, see you back next week for the Charlie Borman interview. Take it easy. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.